Unlock the secrets of franchising success with the Franchise Life podcast. Hosted by Stacie Shannon. Join us for expert insights, success stories, and practical tips every week. Subscribe now and take your franchise journey to the next level.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Life. Today I have Bert Albertse with me, who is the CEO of Jet Set Pilates. Welcome, Bert.
Well, hi, Stacie. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. All right. So, let's dive right in. First, you have a very unique accent. So, what's your background and how did you get involved with Jet Set?
That's right, Stacey. My accent is not American, that's for sure. I'm originally from Cape Town, South Africa. I've been in boutique fitness franchising for over 12 years now, in all various leadership positions, but most predominantly founded my own company called Body 20 back in South Africa, which I brought to the US in 2017. When I sold my interest in that company late in 2019, I was always looking for the next opportunity with a hot brand in a modality that is fast growing, and met the founder here in Brickell, Miami. My wife dragged me to a Pilates class, and frankly, I thought it's going to be like a little bit of stretching, maybe a little bit of sweating. What I didn't expect is all the delayed onset muscle soreness. And after I took my first class, I was just absolutely enthralled with the workout. Couldn't believe how the deep muscle aches I'm getting, which felt very similar to weightlifting. And I started having conversations with the founder, who had a desire to develop a franchise system for her brand. And I felt I paid all the school fees, got the bloody nose in doing it myself, that I could help someone else avoid all of those pain points. And, the rest is history. We've been franchising now for 3.5 years. We have about 230 units open and in development. So rapidly growing, still very much a emerging brand, but growing quickly and really enjoying growing outside of Florida. We have Miami-based company. The brand's been around for 15 years now, so it's not a new brand. Very much the OG in modern reformer Pilates. But in franchising, we're still pretty much finding our feet, but really excited to be talking to you a little bit more about us.
Yeah. So, congratulations. Over 200, you said 260 locations signed and
230.
then 230.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And that is incredible in the amount of time that you've been franchising. And we were talking right before this that there's one here in West Palm Beach where I am. So I'm definitely going to go check that out. So my first question to you is, okay, there are a lot of Pilates. I don't want to say a lot, but there you definitely have competition in this space, right? In the franchise arena with different methodologies out there and different franchise brands. So, at a high level, how is Jet Set different from other brands that you might compete with?
In a lot of different ways, Stacey. I think most importantly, we create an immersive experience that's really about all the elements that come together, not just the workout. I think a lot of times people think you've got a reformer and you're in business, and really the reformer is just a tool for us. It's not our strategy. We incorporate slow, controlled movements. It's not repetition driven, it's time driven, slow, controlled movements. And then we choreograph all of our workouts with DJ curated playlists. So the music with the training coming together. And I think that's really unique. I think for everyone else, it's mostly focusing on the reformer, maybe the workout itself, but not really the lighting, the sound, and everything coming together to create that immersive experience that everyone's after. And I think that's what's really building that community of Jet Set in all our new markets is really the fact that it's the overall vibe and the overall experience and can't be put down to only one thing. And I think more importantly, also the type of demographic we attract. We have a much younger demographic. The Gen Zs, the Gen Xs, the millennials love Jet Set. And that's where all the spending power is right now. I just read the Jeffries report, industry report recently, and apparently the Gen Zs and millennials are spending 2.8 to 3 times more annually than any other generation before them on boutique fitness. And in fact, apparently it's their number one or number two spending priority is on fitness and wellness. So really, I think we're attracting the right demographic who's spending more money in fitness than any other generation before them. So for all those reasons, I think we're in a really good position.
Well, I can definitely. So, a couple comments. Definitely am a fan of the health, wellness, and fitness space. From 2014 to 2019, I owned an indoor cycling studio, and it was not a franchise. It was a brand my family founded. But when you speak about the curated playlist to the exercise, I mean, that just threw me back about 10 years because that's exactly what we did, in the spin industry was every movement was curated to that music. So I love that. Uh, so that begs the question, those playlists, I would assume, are provided by corporate for all franchise owners along with the workouts. Is that correct?
That is right, exactly. So we have playlists that we curate and publish on a monthly basis, and the same for workouts. And then we give some autonomy within a sandbox for the instructors to curate their workout for the class as well, but within those boundaries of our rubric, so to speak. So there's some autonomy. We find that that makes the instructors more motivated to be able to tweak the workout a little bit to their liking, but within that rubric that we provide for them. So yes, music is fully provided, but the workout, there's some flexibility there within the framework.
The stats you shared were also very interesting and encouraging. I mean, I do feel that, I mean, health and wellness, especially ever since COVID, I mean, that just further emphasized, right, the need for well-being and so forth. But, as far as in the boutique fitness industry, we've seen a lot of different concepts that come and go. But the one thing I do really love about Pilates is Pilates dates back for centuries. So can you just share a little bit just about the history of Pilates and why really it does have that stickiness factor?
No, it's an excellent call out, Stacey. I mean, Pilates has been around for many, many decades. And I know in this current format of Reformer Pilates, I think you think far back as Sebastian Legree, who started this about 2 decades ago, and really it's been popularized the last decade in particular because of, I think, TikTok really brought it forward, post-COVID in particular. And I think also where fitness is moving is away from the cardiovascular based workout as a center point. You were talking about spinning. I think spinning struggled to come back post COVID. People got more outdoors, but also I think it struggled because it's a strength based workout. People see the benefits in longevity, quality of life. Strength based workouts have a lot of key attributes that complement quality of life and wellness as a whole. So fitness is just moving towards strength-based workouts, and because of the free-flowing testosterone that it releases in both men and women, and it's really important because I don't think it's spoken enough about, but testosterone has great benefits for females and males alike in terms of preventing cardiovascular disease, arthritis, osteoporosis, particularly in females, right? Because you typically have a lower bone density because of the low testosterone levels. And the best way to avoid a lot of those diseases, the research shows, is strength training. And so then you ask yourself, historically, when you talk about strength training, you're thinking about lifting weights, which is not very accessible or safe, especially if you
Right.
haven't been training for a long time. And I think that enters reformer Pilates, right? Where it's a very accessible, low impact strength workout. So, Stacey, in short, that is probably the tailwind we're getting in Pilates right now is that drive to wellness and longevity, the research backed of strength training, and then the accessibility of Pilates. All those elements coming together is, I think, why Pilates is seeing that tailwind now. And I love your call out also earlier. It's here to stay because it's been here for a long time. And it's really only getting to that early majority now, where most of us know someone who's either taking class or has a friend that has taken class, right? And so that tells you, however, probably out of 10 people, only three will say that. The other seven will say, I've heard about it. And so that
Right.
also tells us we're not at the late majority just yet. So we still can enjoy that wave of that bell curve as the exponential growth of the industry has continued to escalate.
Well, and another thing about this modality also is, I mean, you mentioned the trends in younger generations and so forth, and in their priorities and the amount of money they're spending in this space. But for individuals like myself who are more middle-aged, it does provide a great avenue for low impact strength workout, right? I am not looking to go be a huge bodybuilder by any means, and I'm not a huge fan of big box gyms
Right.
for strength training. So obviously, having owned a boutique fitness studio myself, I do love the format and also the culture
Mm.
that it fosters. I mean, I can look back at, clients coming in and they just were so welcoming to see each other every day. They form friendships, and there's a sense of community that comes with a concept like this as well. So I do want to ask you one question. You show us a picture behind you of what a Jet Set Pilates studio looks like. Your reformers, though, I was very interested to read that this is a proprietary technology to you guys. These are specific to Jet Set. So can you share a little bit more about why you chose to create your own equipment?
That's a great question. And Stacey, that's not actually a picture. I'm sitting at our training center,
Oh,
and it's an actual
okay.
real facility. No, it certainly looks like one. So I always find it funny because it does look like a picture. You would know the difference.
No.
But Stacey, so as you can see, the reformers behind me, they're manufactured in the US, proudly manufactured in the US. One of the few reformers that are made here and not in China or abroad. And the quality reflects that. It's really the Rolls Royce of reformers, and it has a lot of customizations. I think we're going to be careful when we say proprietary because anything can be copied, and to get a patent on these things are next to impossible unless you Sebastian Degree, who has um, dozens and dozens of patents that's becoming harder and harder to protect. But there's like all these little nuances, like for example, the eyelids to take pressure off of your wrists. There's all these little small touches in a reformer that's really curated for us, for our workouts specifically, that makes it really unique. But ultimately, I think it's the quality. For the client and for the franchise owner. So the client, it's all the feel, look, and touch of the reformer. So really high quality machine, antibacterial surfaces, soft as well, but yet sturdy. I mean, they weigh 325 pounds each, so you have a lot of men over 6 feet that struggle on a typical reformer to really feel balanced. And our machine is incredibly balanced. It can handle a lot higher weight load. And ultimately, I think it just makes people feel like it's an innovative workout all throughout. So a few small tweaks combined with our spring loads that's unique. So the spring loads are like, think about like resistance weights that we put onto them that's unique to our workouts. And then ultimately the way that we use them. That's the most important. Where the music, the workout, and the instructor comes together, that's where the community meets. Like you said perfectly well earlier, it's a community-driven workout. I think you find people like-minded in class, and I think that resonates with people right now. I think I hate to sound religious, but your church used to be your second home, right? And I'm less convinced more and more that the new generation sees it the same way. But what they are trying to find is their second home. And a lot of them find it in fitness. And I can see why. It's people in class wanting to do better for themselves, for their bodies, for their minds, for their health. And if you find people like that in a place, it's really difficult to find one place that represents all those things to you, right? Like a belief system, right?
Right.
And I think that's why there's still a space for boutique fitness. And I think that doesn't just speak to the Pilates modalities, but all boutique fitness modalities. But you got to be clear on what you stand for, what values are important to you. Otherwise, you're going to have a mixed bag of people arriving, and that's not what a community is about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you anymore, really. So I love what you just shared, and I feel like that sentiment is probably in part what is fueling your growth also. So what do you think you've awarded over 230 territories. I know people come from all walks of life, but what what similarities are you seeing from a background or attribute standpoint from the investors to date?
Amazing. Yes. And there are kind of the key different personas that we continuously see in our brand that are top performers. We have a lot of people from the real estate background, people who are self-employed, understands what it takes to generate business, create community, create network. And so people from real estate backgrounds wanting to divest from the real estate portfolio, or they were brokers. And, the real estate market has softened a little bit the last few years. And we've seen really good success in them operating studios with us. We've got people from the financing consulting world as well, because it's a very sound financial investment as well. And they can see it reflected in our item 19, in our P&Ls, in terms of return on sales and return on equity. And then we also have doctors who just typically want to also start minding their own business. And what do I mean by that? Still have their profession, have their career, but invest somewhere where they can dedicate, 5 to 10 hours a week on supporting their manager, and us, but still continue with their professional career. And then we also have a lot of corporate dropouts, but they drop out and stay, as we like to say. We don't need them to leave their job. First 2, 3 years, the best thing to do is continue working while you growing your business, and that way you can scale from 1 to 3 studios quickly, while managing your risks. You don't want to leave your job and start a new business simultaneously. And our business lends itself to that, Stacie, because it's not a owner-manager business. In fact, when the owner is the manager, we see lower performance. Far better performance is a manage the manager. It really, boutique fitness franchising, there's not a lot of manager roles. So there's a lot of demand. And ultimately, there's a lot of supply. A lot of people are looking for work, and they're not very expensive. You can get yourself a good manager, depending on your market, for between 65 and 85,000 in base compensation. And then you obviously want to make sure that they're equally incentivized, like in a profit share or commission basis or bonus structure that can get them up to 90, 100,000 when you're highly, highly profitable. And for that reason, a good manager is cheaper than you as an owner, number one. And number two,
True.
they're easier to find, and you can have more predictable success. And also, it's much harder to fire the owner if the owner doesn't do a good job. It's easier to find another general manager. And so, yes, a lot of different personas, but certainly the attributes, probably personality attributes we're looking for mostly is what we like to call the dependent independent operator. So, what do I mean by dependent independent? People are dependent on structures, processes, and systems. I love it. They want to work with something that's proven to work. They don't want to reinvent the wheel, right? But they're independent on execution. So, meaning they don't need someone else to hold their hand to do the job. They just need to know what to do, and they go execute, right? Um, that's what we're looking for. And I know it sounds easy, but you get a lot of dependent who's like, oh, I need you to tell me what to do, but I also need you to do it for me. Right? Not a
Right.
good fit. And you also get a lot of independent, which is equally dangerous. It's like I can execute by myself, but I'm also really independent. I don't like rules. You know, the guardrails are limitations for me, right? And so those personalities are great for starting their own concept, but maybe not great for franchise system. So really being clear on who we're looking for, what traits gives you the qualities to succeed in our franchise is really important to us through the entire discovery process.
Along the lines of personnel, then, another attribute that I found really intriguing is that your instructors do not need to be Pilates certified. So, can you expand a little bit more on that?
It's an excellent call out, Stacey, and that widens your recruitment pool so much, right? Because Pilates certification is traditional. First of all, if you think about Pilates certification, that's very for traditional Pilates. It doesn't even apply to our method. And so what we found, it was harder to teach people with that traditional Pilates to do Jet Set modern Pilates. It was far easier to find someone with the right soft skills, personality, interpersonal relationships, friendliness, eagerness, passion. Like we like to say, the Triple H certification: humble, hardworking, and hungry, right? That's what we're looking for in a good instructor, because we can teach the rest. And we've got a NASM certified. So in other words, when you come to us, you get your certification. If you have base certification with NASM or AFA, our certification program gives you additional ongoing credits towards that certification. So it's also highly certified in the sense that it adds to your additional credits. If you are a professional teacher or coach, every year you are required to get those ECUs to maintain your certification. Coming to a Jet Set certification training actually provides you those ECUs as well. So it's a highly endorsed certification training that we host, but it's specific to Jet Set. So you can't complete a Jet Set certification and go teach elsewhere and think that certification is meaningful. It's certification to get a job. It's not certification to get a skill that you can translate into any other workout outside of Jet Set. And so what we've done is really condense the workout on what is most important for safety, corrections, modifications, and for quality workout for the client. And we give you all the tools and resources to succeed as an instructor, including writing the workout. And then once you become more comfortable, pass your 90-day evaluation, you can then start playing around a little bit with modifying the workout. But there's all these little ongoing education pieces that helps people stay engaged as an instructor and to continuously improve. We think no instructor is perfect when you get certified as a trainee. The goal is to get a trainee to a senior instructor, and that's about ongoing education. So all those ongoing assessments, feedbacks, what to keep doing, what to stop doing, and what to start doing. And making sure we got that ongoing dialogue with you as an instructor, as a trainee, in order for you to go through those different tenures. And as you go through those different levels as well, Stacie, you earn more per class. So there's a real clear incentive financially against those ongoing educational development, because I think people are here for two reasons. They want to master what they do, and they also want to have some form of autonomy in what they do as an instructor, because you want to express your personality onto the class, but within the boundaries of Jet Set branded experience. And if you're good as a brand, you just need to give that canvas, and teach them the broad strokes. And then they will put their masterpiece together. And I think clients resonate with that better as well, because if someone's just there, I know you spoke about your experience with Boutique Fitness as spinning instructor. If everyone sounds the same, that doesn't express their personality in the class, I think clients feel the disconnect. There's
Oh,
that lack of authenticity there that you're missing. So we try and create the framework or the playing field for them to be authentically themselves.
absolutely. You couldn't be more spot on. And I mean, from an ownership standpoint and managing a studio, having that broadened pool for the instructor base, because you are not requiring that Pilates certification, because that in itself is a journey for anybody to. I tried starting the journey of getting my yoga certification, and I think I went through 2 classes, and I'm like, okay, not going to happen for me. Like, got distracted. I'll just be a student of yoga and not a teacher. Okay, so let's dive into the actual real estate. Share with us what the footprint is of a typical studio. I'm assuming this is Class A real estate. I've seen where the location is in West Palm Beach here, prime locations, and how you guys support franchise owners in that real estate search.
Amazing. That's a great question, Stacey. With real estate is tough, right? I don't think there's an easy fix, especially if you're into Tier A real estate, like you said. Vacancies are low and demand's high, right? So the power dynamic lives with the landlords at the moment. And so you've got to get very creative. You're also going to be very fast, make a lot of offers quickly. And so let's take a step back and talk about the typical size of the spaces. 1,900 square feet is our average spaces, but it can go as small as 1,500, as large as 2,500 square feet. At the low end of that, at 1,500 square feet, you'd fit around 12 reformers, upwards to 18 reformers in 2,500 square feet. So in other words, you can train 12 to 18 clients per class. And that's what makes the economics work, because your fixed costs remain the same, while as your utilization grows and your inventory, the number of classes you have in your schedule grows, your fixed costs remain flat, right? So your contribution margin only continues to increase as you ramp your schedule. And so in terms of the real estate process, Stacie, the key is to have the right local brokers in your corner who know about off-market opportunities before they become on-market. Because once they're on-market, there's a reason that the deal's not yet been done. Sometimes you get lucky and it just came on-market when you were searching, but most of the time it's available because no one else wants it. Right. And so it's important that you have those relationships, that we certify those brokers in the market to start searching before you even become a franchisee. So we're active in all markets. Before you sign your franchise agreement, we already know, okay, what's the lay of the land? Where do we want to be in the trade area? And then also making sure we've got the insights of the visitors who frequent that site. So we use a lot of technology like Place AI, which is essentially cell phone data that we acquire and look at, what psycho demographics are visiting, where are they coming from, where are they going when they come to the center. So we want to make sure that we underwrite the performance of the site to be a top performing site, not just because of the broker's opinion or co-tenancy, but actually because of the visitors who frequent there today. And we want to see that that's very similar to the visitors who go to Jet Set and other locations. So that's what we call a lookalike audience that visits there. And then we score the location based on those attributes. Ultimately, we provide all the project management support as well. So you will be assigned a site selection manager, but you'll also be assigned a construction project manager. And so we're able to coordinate all the vendors, making sure you've got a proper test fit for the site. We also help do all the financial underwriting. So when you go look at a site, the biggest risk for franchisees, not just in Jet Set, but I think in the brick and mortar franchise, is construction costs overspend. Right? That is what drives undercapitalization. And, that's number one reason franchisees fail, being undercapitalized for the project. The second reason they fail is they don't follow the playbook. And the third reason they fail is they don't follow the playbook. But the number one reason being undercapitalized is a function of not knowing what it's going to cost me. So what does it mean? You'd imagine, okay, equipment's easy to know. Depending on the number of reformers, we can project that, right? Easy. Signage, millwork, very easy to project. What's not easy to project is the construction cost, because every site has its own nuances. The existing conditions are different, the market's different. So what we do is go through a financial review process where we go in, we do a site survey, we do a test fit, and then we do a conceptual budget before you even sign the lease. That way we can come back to your budget and say, okay, based on these conditions, this is what's going to cost you. And therefore, either you've got to ask more from the landlord in terms of landlord work or as a tenant improvement allowance in order for this to come into budget. Or if not, let's not sign the lease. So in order to have that information to support your decision making. And I think too many franchisors leave it up to the franchisee to underwrite the site cost before they sign the lease. And then when they sign the lease, it's too late. Because now you're locked in. You have a deposit, you have a 10-year commitment on the lease. And now suddenly you find out instead of 150,000, this is going to cost me 200,000 for the build out. And suddenly, where does the 50,000 come from? Right. And so you want to make sure you've got a very close ballpark on that specific site before you sign the lease. And that's also part of what we offer our franchisees is we've got all these benchmarks across all of our projects. So we're able to better underwrite the financials for that site before you sign the lease.
And that is fantastic. All that data you've compiled and the support is invaluable, especially for a new business owner that's never had to go through this process of selecting real estate, negotiating with the owner of the property, negotiate tenant improvement dollars. If I could go back, I do things a million different ways, and wish I had a team to rely on like you guys. I went into a completely new retail center. So I was putting in the insulation, I was doing the plumbing, I was doing everything. And like I said, if I could go back and do it different, 100%, I'd go into a second generation spot that already had that done. And then you're just focused really on the tenant improvement.
Exactly. Yeah, because you don't know what you don't know, Stacie. It's
No.
those are typically the things that bite you at the end.
Yep. All right. So on a last note, let's dive into what most investors are most interested in, and that is the financials. So from an item 7 standpoint, the initial investment is going to be anywhere between 413,000 to 806,000. But what is really impressive is the item 19. So I know you do share some information, so I'd love for you to share with our listeners what average gross revenue, EBITDA margins look like, anything that you can share from what's publicized in the item 19.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Stacey. And I will say yes. Gross revenue or average unit volume last year was 930 plus $1,000 per unit, and the average EBITDA margin above 30%. So in other words, you were taking home 30 cents on the dollar on average, and we have some top performers who do even better than that. If you look at the item 19, and I think most impressively is all the P&Ls are fully disclosed in item 19 as well. So you can look at the detailed item 19 and you'll find the P&Ls for each of those locations that were open the entire year last year. And so it's just really refreshing, I believe, for people to actually look at the business performance that transparently. So not just do we have our revenue mix, our average unit volumes, our low, high, median, and average performance for revenues in the bidder, but we also have the detailed P&L. So you can look at the itemized, where are they incurring costs? Where's the revenue coming from? And how did those studios perform month on month for the entire 2024 period? So I also think you'll be surprised in joining the discovery process. You'll meet some of the owners who will speak to their success year to date. And hopefully that would further support the decisions of franchise partners to join the Jet Set franchise system.
Oh, I love that transparency. I have a client I'm working with right now that's evaluating a franchise, not in the fitness space, but the level of transparency, they've given very little information about ROI information in the item 19, no P&Ls. So it's really, really difficult to evaluate an investment when you don't have that information. So kudos to you guys for doing that. All right, Bert, any last words for our audience who is looking for an investment that loves health, wellness, and fitness? The floor
Amazing.
is yours.
Well, Stacey, thank you. Yeah, I think if you're in the health, wellness, and fitness space, you can't go wrong in following your heart, but also your mind, and make sure that you, Stacey, you called it out so beautifully. And I think that's the benefit of working with a great consultant like yourselves and your networks is making sure that you have someone who can guide you in what to look for, where the red flags are, right? And then follow your gut instinct. When someone's not disclosing something, ask why. Right. And ultimately, for Jet Set Pilates, we want people who are purpose driven for their community, for their team, and that ultimately results into success in the business. And so I think if you want to follow us as Jet Set Pilates on LinkedIn and on social media, Instagram in particular. I think you'll see the brand's vibe in the community we're building. I think that's reflected on our social media channels. And, if that's something that's of interest to you, you can go to our website, jetsetpilates.com, and go see if you're interested in a franchise opportunity, and just drop your details there and we'll reach out to you and take you through the discovery process. No commitment needed whatsoever. It's all just an educational process, making sure you know what you're in for. And ultimately, if it's a mutual fit, we award our franchisees after confirmation day. And hopefully we can see some of your listeners at a confirmation day in the near future, Stacey.
Yeah, absolutely. But Bert, I do have to correct you. You would much rather have them reach out to me first, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. No, I would certainly, I educated, no, you laugh, but it's true because what we find with someone who's working through someone like yourself, Stacey, is that they just come with perspective. They come with knowing the right questions to ask, and they can also contextualize what we give them much better. And they're also better performers, Stacey. I will just say that they perform better as a franchise partner. So I truly, if you told me, listen, come directly to us or go through someone like yourself, Stacey, I would always recommend, and it's not just because it's a better educated partner, but it's also a partner who has more options. And when you have options, you make better decisions.
Well, Bert, thank you. I was kind of teasing you there a little bit,
But it's
but
also true.
all right. Well, thank you, Bert, for joining me today to share more about Jet Set Pilates. For anybody that is interested in learning more about this brand, please feel free to reach out to me at Stacie@fusionfranchising.com. Thanks and have a great day.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe for more on the franchise life.